A quest for justice and accountability. The Nuremberg Trials. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the world grappled with the unprecedented atrocities committed by the Nazi regime. The Holocaust, the systematic extermination of millions of Jews, Roma, and other minorities, as well as the countless war crimes perpetrated by the Axis powers, demanded a response that would not only punish the perpetrators but also establish a framework for international justice. This response took the form of the Nuremberg Trials, a series of military tribunals held in the city of Nuremberg, Germany, between 1945 and 1949. The Nuremberg Trials were a landmark event in the history of international law and human rights. They established the principle that individuals, regardless of their rank or position, could be held accountable for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes against peace. This principle, now enshrined in international law, revolutionized the concept of individual responsibility and set a precedent for future tribunals dealing with genocide and other mass atrocities. The trials were conducted by the International Military Tribunal, the IMT, composed of judges from the Allied powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and France. The defendants included prominent Nazi leaders, military commanders, government officials, and industrialists who had played a key role in the Nazi regime's crimes. Figures like Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, Alfred Jodl, and Karl Dönitz faced justice in Nuremberg. The charges against the defendants were wide-ranging and included crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Crimes against peace encompassed the planning and waging of aggressive war, while war crimes included violations of the laws and customs of war, such as the mistreatment of prisoners of war and the killing of civilians. Crimes against humanity encompassed the persecution and extermination of racial, religious, and political groups. The Nuremberg trials were not without their controversies and limitations. Some critics argued that the trials were a form of victor's justice, with the victors imposing their own legal and moral standards on the vanquished. Others questioned the impartiality of the judges and the fairness of the proceedings. Despite these criticisms, the Nuremberg trials had a profound and lasting impact on the development of international law and the pursuit of justice. The trials established a precedent for the prosecution of individuals for crimes against humanity, regardless of their official capacity or the laws of their own country. This principle was later codified in the Genocide Convention and other international legal instruments. The trials also played a crucial role in documenting and publicizing the atrocities committed by the Nazi regime. The testimony of survivors and the presentation of documentary evidence exposed the horrors of the Holocaust and other Nazi crimes to the world, shattering any illusions about the regime's legitimacy, and underscoring the importance of remembering and learning from the past. The legacy of the Nuremberg trials continues to resonate today. The principles of individual accountability and the prohibition of crimes against humanity have become cornerstones of international law. The trials also served as a model for subsequent international tribunals, such as the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which sought to hold perpetrators of genocide and other mass atrocities accountable. The Nuremberg trials were a complex and multifaceted event with a profound and enduring legacy. They were a testament to the international community's commitment to justice and accountability, even in the face of unimaginable horror. The trials also served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of upholding human rights, and the necessity of remembering and learning from the past, to prevent future atrocities. A struggle for liberation and the seeds of division. The First Indochina War. The First Indochina War, 1946 to 1954, was a pivotal conflict that marked the end of French colonial rule in Indochina, and laid the groundwork for the subsequent Vietnam War. This protracted and brutal war, fought between the Viet Minh, a Vietnamese nationalist and communist-led coalition, and the French colonial forces, had profound implications for the region and the wider Cold War context. The French, unwilling to relinquish their colonial possessions, returned to Indochina after Vietnam's declaration of independence with the intention of reasserting their authority. This led to a clash between the Viet Minh, determined to defend their independence, and the French, determined to maintain their colonial empire. The First Indochina War was characterized by a complex and dynamic battlefield. The Viet Minh, led by the brilliant military strategist General Vo Nguyen Giap, employed guerrilla tactics, exploiting their knowledge of the terrain and the support of the local population. The French, on the other hand, relied on their superior firepower and conventional military tactics, often underestimating the Viet Minh's resilience and adaptability. The war dragged on for years, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The French, despite their initial military successes, found themselves bogged down in a costly and unpopular war. The Viet Minh, though outgunned and outmanned, proved to be a formidable adversary, their determination fueled by a fervent nationalist spirit, and a desire for self-determination. The turning point in the war came in 1954 with the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. This decisive battle, which saw the Viet Minh forces encircle and defeat a well-entrenched French garrison, dealt a fatal blow to French morale and political will. The French government, facing mounting casualties and domestic pressure, agreed to negotiate a peace settlement. The Geneva Accords of 1954 marked the end of the First Indochina War, and the beginning of a new chapter in Vietnamese history. The accords stipulated a temporary division of Vietnam along the 17th parallel, with the Viet Minh controlling the north and a pro-Western regime governing the south. Elections were to be held in 1956 to reunify the country, but these never materialized due to the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The First Indochina War had profound and far-reaching consequences. It marked the end of French colonialism in Indochina, and the emergence of Vietnam as an independent nation. However, the division of Vietnam into two separate states laid the groundwork for the subsequent Vietnam War, a conflict that would engulf the region and the world for another 2 decades. The war also had a significant impact on the Cold War. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, stepped in to support the South Vietnamese regime, thus escalating the conflict into a proxy war between the superpowers. The First Indochina War, therefore, served as a prelude to a larger and more devastating conflict that would leave a lasting scar on the region and the world. In conclusion, the First Indochina War was a complex and multifaceted conflict with profound implications for Vietnam, the region, and the wider Cold War context. It was a war fought for national liberation and self-determination, but it also sowed the seeds of division and conflict that would continue to haunt Vietnam for decades to come. The war's legacy serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of colonialism, the enduring struggle for national liberation, and the complex interplay of domestic and international factors in shaping the course of history. A pillar of American Cold War policy. The Truman Doctrine. At the heart of American Cold War policy was the Truman Doctrine, a foreign policy initiative announced by President Harry S. Truman in 1947 that aimed to contain the spread of communism and bolster democratic governments around the world. The Truman Doctrine was a response to the perceived threat of Soviet expansionism in Europe. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the Soviet Union had consolidated its control over Eastern Europe, establishing communist regimes in countries such as Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. This expansion alarmed Western leaders, who feared that the Soviet Union sought to impose its ideology and influence across the continent. In Greece, a civil war was raging between the communist-led insurgents and the Western-backed government. The British, who had been providing aid to the Greek government, announced in 1947 that they could no longer afford to do so. This left Greece vulnerable to communist takeover, a prospect that alarmed American policymakers. President Truman, recognizing the strategic importance of Greece and the broader threat of communist expansion, decided to take decisive action. On March 12, 1947, he addressed a joint session of Congress and outlined his vision for American foreign policy in the post-war era. This address, which came to be known as the Truman Doctrine, marked a turning point in American foreign policy. Truman declared that it was the policy of the United States to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures. He requested $400 million in aid for Greece and Turkey, two countries that were deemed to be on the front lines of the Cold War. This aid was intended to bolster their economies and military capabilities, thereby preventing them from falling under Soviet influence. The Truman Doctrine was met with mixed reactions both domestically and internationally. Some critics argued that it marked a departure from traditional American foreign policy principles of non-intervention and neutrality. Others expressed concerns about the potential for escalating tensions with the Soviet Union, and the financial burden of providing aid to foreign countries. However, the Truman Doctrine also garnered significant support. Many Americans saw it as a necessary response to the threat of communism and a way to uphold American values of democracy and freedom. The doctrine also resonated with many Europeans who feared Soviet expansion and sought American protection. The Truman Doctrine had a profound impact on the course of the Cold War. It marked the beginning of a policy of containment, aimed at preventing the further spread of communism. This policy would shape American foreign policy for decades to come, leading to interventions in Korea, Vietnam, and other parts of the world. The Truman Doctrine also established the United States as a global leader and a defender of democracy. It provided a framework for American engagement in international affairs and cemented the country's role as a superpower. The doctrine's emphasis on supporting free peoples and resisting oppression resonated with many around the world, inspiring anti-communist movements and bolstering democratic governments. The Truman Doctrine was a defining moment in the early years of the Cold War. It represented a shift in American foreign policy towards a more active and interventionist role in world affairs. While the doctrine's legacy is complex and multifaceted, its impact on the course of history is undeniable. It shaped the contours of the Cold War, established the United States as a global leader, and helped to contain the spread of communism. The Truman Doctrine, therefore, stands as a testament to the power of ideas, the importance of leadership, and the enduring struggle between freedom and tyranny. A legacy of espionage and controversy. The creation of the CIA. As the world transitioned into a new era marked by geopolitical rivalries and ideological clashes, the United States sought to bolster its intelligence capabilities. This led to the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, in 1947, a clandestine organization tasked with gathering, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence to safeguard national security. The CIA's inception marked a significant shift in American foreign policy, ushering in an era of secret operations, espionage, and interventionism that continues to shape global events to this day. The CIA's origins can be traced back to the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, a wartime intelligence agency established in 1942 under the leadership of William J. Donovan. The OSS played a crucial role in gathering intelligence, conducting sabotage operations, and supporting resistance movements behind enemy lines during the Second World War. However, with the war's end, the OSS was disbanded, leaving a void in American intelligence capabilities. President Harry S. Truman, recognizing the need for a permanent intelligence agency, signed the National Security Act of 1947, which established the CIA. The agency was tasked with a wide range of responsibilities, including collecting and analyzing intelligence, conducting secret operations, and coordinating the intelligence activities of other government agencies. The CIA's early years were marked by a series of successes and controversies. The agency played a key role in the overthrow of the Iranian government in 1953, the Guatemalan coup d'état in 1954, and other secret operations aimed at containing the spread of communism. These interventions, while often successful in achieving their immediate objectives, also fueled anti-American sentiment and instability in many parts of the world. The CIA's activities were not limited to foreign countries. The agency also engaged in domestic surveillance and infiltration of civil rights groups and other organizations deemed to be subversive. These activities, which came to light in the 1970s through a series of congressional investigations, sparked widespread public outrage and led to significant reforms of the agency's oversight and accountability mechanisms. The CIA's role in the Cold War was particularly prominent. The agency engaged in a global espionage war with its Soviet counterpart, the KGB, collecting intelligence, recruiting agents, and conducting secret operations. The CIA's activities during this period were often shrouded in secrecy, and the full extent of its operations remains unknown to this day. With the end of the Cold War, the CIA's mission shifted to focus on new threats, such as terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and cyber warfare. The agency's role in the post-9/11 era has been particularly controversial, with its involvement in the war on terror, the use of enhanced interrogation techniques, and the drone strikes program sparking heated debates about the ethics and legality of its actions. The CIA's legacy is a complex and multifaceted one. On the one hand, the agency has played a crucial role in safeguarding national security, providing valuable intelligence that has helped to prevent terrorist attacks and other threats. On the other hand, the CIA's involvement in covert operations, regime change, and domestic surveillance has raised serious ethical and legal questions, tarnishing its reputation and fueling skepticism about its activities. The CIA's creation in 1947 marked a watershed moment in American history. It ushered in an era of undercover action and espionage that continues to shape global events. The agency's legacy, while controversial, is a testament to its enduring importance in the realm of national security. As the world faces new and evolving challenges, the CIA's role will continue to be scrutinized and debated. But its significance in the realm of intelligence and national security remains undeniable. In the next chapter, We will cover the partition and independence of India, as well as the assassination of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and one of the most pivotal events in the early years of the Cold War, the Berlin blockade.